recording now. SX, you want to kick us off and intro yourself and what we're doing a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. I am SX Noir, and we are here today to talk about memes and security, pretty much. So we're going to be talking about the social sharing aspect behind viral memes, which are, quick forms of processing information, I think. My team's going to expand more on that because I'm not the expert. But I am the thought leader of sex technology, and I am the host of the Thought Leader podcast, where we navigate concepts of sex, tech, love, and dating. And I also am the host of a documentary called Corona Thoughts, where we are navigating how COVID-19 has impacted the sex industry. So I'm very happy to be here with you all and my three cohorts. It's very early while we're recording this, so be patient with us today. So do y'all want to introduce yourselves, or do you want me to? You all introduce. Blunt, you can go first.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I'm Blunt. I use she, her pronouns. I am a sex worker and a sex worker rights activist. I am one of the co-founders of Hacking Hustling, an organization of sex workers and accomplices working at the intersection of tech and social justice. Right now, our main goal is to bring folks information as quickly as possible, which SX just mentioned, we're filming this in the morning, so please be generous with us while we sort of have this conversation on the fly.
Go ahead, Taz.
Okay. Hi, I'm Taz. I am a cybersecurity specialist. Wow, the resumes of both of you. Amazing. I have been working in security for the past 10 years and recently doing more research on how data is weaponized, how data affects marginalized communities. And I started an effort called Cyber Collective to basically provide security and privacy information for the everyday people.
Hey, I'm Allison. I use she, her pronouns. I am part of Women of Sex Tech. I am a cybersecurity professional and I work at the intersection of sex and technology. I work with SX and I also, my cybersecurity focus is on policy, data privacy and surveillance, particularly when it comes to sex work. So I am happy to be here with all of my friends today, and I'm really looking forward to having this dialogue.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Y'all are with the Women of Sex Tech.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
Do you
I am also the vice president of the Women of Sex Tech, with an initiative to actively include sex workers in the sex tech world. And I work with Allison, and Allison's great. And so we're happy to be here with you all today, bringing this information to you. And I do use the pronouns she and her. I think I did say that, but
I don't know if I did. I also use the pronoun she and her.
Awesome. SX, do you want to start us off with the community guidelines too?
Yes, I do. So, as always, we love to start off with an intention, setting intention for the space, whether it be physical or digital. So we want you to know that these are just suggestions for the conversation that we're having today. We are experts of our own selves, and we're sharing information that we know personally. So take it as you will. And this is by no means professional advice. You have to do whatever works best for you and how you know best. So we are trying to share information very quickly. So this is very much a day-to-day assessment that we're going to be sharing with you all right now. And if the opportunity presents itself, we can have a more formal conversation later down the road. But we wanted to get this to you right now. And as your thought leader, I always like to remind everyone to be thoughtful. So be kind with us, your leaders of the conversation, but also yourself as you're listening and watching this. As always, what we talk about is very emotionally impactful. So if you need to take a moment to step away, you are always welcome to do that, or to pause the video since you'll be watching this re-recorded. So something else that we like to acknowledge in this space is to accept people as who they are. So please do not question anyone's identity or question anyone's truth of what they tell you, to accept it as true. So let's get it going. Let's start.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can
What
take
is a
this.
meme?
Yeah. What is a meme? First, I want to thank you, SX, for that intro, because I do think one thing that we will be talking about is like the emotions behind when things go viral, and like what sort of internalized is weaponized that we might share something that's misinformation. So I think that's a really important part of the conversation. But first, I want to talk a little bit about memes. I feel like folks are most familiar with memes as sort of like a silly picture with text that can change that's shared really rapidly. But I want to share what the more traditional, before that was happening on social media, the definition of what a meme is, to help sort of place it culturally and historically. So a meme is an element of culture or system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation. So I believe actually the word meme like is related to the word imitation. They have similar roots. So memes as we know it now are sort of like a humorous image or video or piece of art that is copied, often with slight variations, and spread very rapidly by internet users. So do we want to like spitball a couple of memes that we've been seeing that we might talk about in this?
Mm-hmm. To expand on what Blunt was saying, my personal interpretation of a meme is something that is very easily understood. So it may not take a lot of education or a lot of background information, but it is very specific to a cultural reference, right? And so it has many layers of cultural understanding that it's almost an immediate knee-jerk, like, oh, this is funny, or oh, this is important, or oh, this is impactful. Most often, if you are digesting a meme or sharing a meme, it doesn't have to be explained, which is also the part of it all, right? So so memes, I don't know, I should have pulled up an example, but I'm thinking of the meme of the Pokemon meme where it's like the little bird and he's like going like this, and it's like, is this?
Oh yeah.
I love hearing people explain memes. I was just setting you up for my head. We could all share our favorite memes.
Like, is this or the meme of the girl going like this,
Oh,
that
that
an expression, right? Yeah, an expression of something that has, cultural significance, right? So that was funny to us because of, I think it was a video or something like that. What else? I guess.
Is it okay if something from the cultural piece? I think adding like popular culture, which because there are so many different definitions and ideas of what culture is, and a lot of times you show a meme to somebody that maybe isn't in kind of like social media popular culture, follows a certain type of people, and they don't really get like he references, right? And when I show it to my parents definitely don't understand many that I show
explaining
them, right?
one to your therapist or parents is like
so trying
too much,
right? And so I think acknowledging that, like specifically to pop culture, and that's why it is so relevant in what's going on and all of the discussion that we'll be unraveling here.
Totally.
Yeah, this is the one. I think it was here. Shit, I just had it. Where'd it go? Oh, this one.
You got it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What does it say?
It says like
it says it's a sex worker meme because that's all I know.
Is this my girlfriend?
There's like a person in there. Yeah, so anyway.
I love it. What were you saying, Allison?
Oh, I was just gonna say when I initially hear the word meme, I like relate it to something that's humorous, but I think that it gets information across in a way that how we visually process content on social media, because sometimes we can get content fatigue if there's like too many words. And one thing that I do know that is within PSYOPs, the whole point is to kind of move public opinion at a really large scale in order to influence a certain type of behavior. So
can you define PSYOPs?
Yes, so I have a Merriam-Webster definition that I will use so I don't mess this up. But so PSYOPs is military operations usually aimed at influencing the enemy's state of mind through non-combative means, such as distribution of leaflets. So, looking at the history of PSYOPs, we know that, this is something that's been going on forever. And it has a lot of history, but what we do know now is that it has been transformed into a modern day type of digital warfare, particularly by people within our own country as well as other nation states. And if we look at how AI in particular has impacted PSYOPs, which is short for psychological warfare, we know that it has this ability to automate and segment folks in social networks. And if we think about what social networks are, they are essentially like voluntarily and mutual surveillance. So they are essentially surveilled spaces, and the AI can segment people into categories that are then surveilled spaces. So that AI will then be able to analyze and these people into kind of psychological segments as well, and then be able to identify cognitive biases and apply the narrative that they need to move at scale. And then using that information, folks will create memes in order to change the behavior of the people that they are targeting.
Right, memes as propaganda.
Exactly.
Is what yeah. That's super interesting. Yeah, and I think a lot of what sort of stemmed this conversation was the Black Tile Blackout Tuesday that was then shared with the hashtag Black Lives Matter to clog the feed. I don't know if someone wants to chat briefly about what that was, what they saw.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that the one thing that Allison said that was very interesting was the volunteer aspect, right? This is so interestingly implemented psychologically that people volunteer this information, and it reiterates the idea that to navigate free space online means to give your information away for free, this volunteer aspect. So yeah, if Taz, did you want to expand on the Black Tile?
Yeah, I mean, Allison teed it up really, really well as far as the way that information reaches our screens and how kind of intentional that information is. And as far as the Black Tile specifically, and this is something that I kind of spoke about a few days ago, and the frustration of how something so positive can so quickly be turned into something negative and against the movement and against the good work. And, you think about it from an existential perspective almost. It's like, who has control of how this information is being distributed? And the control group who are they? Are they allies? Are they oppressors? And so even though something can come, and there was a lot of commenting and feedback on, like, yes, the Blackout Tuesday was made by two women that had all of the intention to mute people that needed to, can I curse? Can I speak freely? That needed to shut the fuck up. People needed to shut the fuck up about their protein shakes and all of the things that, like, bloggers and stuff, and space needed to be created for the movement Black Lives Matter, specifically, as the hashtag amplifying melanated voices, but specifically Black voices. And how that turned into, and that's the question, like the chicken and the egg question, how did this movement of Blackout,
can you explain exactly what the ask was and like how the hashtags cross-pollinated?
Yeah, so I don't know both of their names, but one is Jamila, and if you guys know either of the two women, they're in the music industry, and basically the goal of the Blackout was to get people in the music industry that were continuing to kind of push out content, creatives and artists that were still promoting their own work, to get them to stop promoting their own work for some time, because the music industry, I mean, there would be no music industry without Black people. So the music industry was really standing by that and trying to amplify the right voices that needed to be amplified. And it wasn't necessarily to only talk about the movement and the protesting and what's happening, but talk about the work of Black people and be able to share all of the good work that they're doing and share their resources. So the goal of the Blackout was to literally amplify all Black voices and talk about what is happening right now, the unrest at large, and have everybody else mute any other post that doesn't have to do with what's going on right now. And somehow the blackout was completely misinterpreted, not necessarily misinterpreted, it shifted.
I'd say even like weaponized.
Weaponized, intentionally weaponized. And it turned into everybody shut up, don't talk, only post the black tile, and then don't say anything at all. And that, as soon as I saw that on the internet, and as soon as you clicked the hashtag and everybody was hashtagging Black Lives Matter, right? Without malintent, I'm sure the good people that, and people that are trying to be allies and be able to show their support, wanted to be able to show their support somehow and stand in solidarity. And I think also, I can't speak on behalf, but from what I surmise on my feed, a lot of people were looking for some sort of solidarity to be able to like show like support in one way, or one form or another, and it was weaponized. And then all of the information, that valuable information about protests, about surveillance, about what's actually fucking happening out there, was completely suppressed. And that information stopped reaching people's timelines. And especially the whole point was to like, I think, break into certain algorithmic bubbles and generate content that normally, or allow content to reach places that normally don't reach, right? Say into maybe like a British beauty blogger or something that only has white fans and has like 2.4 million followers or something, for her to be able to post a blackout and then maybe amplify more voices. But it wasn't, the narrative was completely weaponized, misconstrued, and it fucked up the whole initiative. And I think people started asking questions, which is really important. And there were some key voices that spoke up. Miss Packyetti spoke up around like why this doesn't seem right. And I think people are questioning things now that just aren't sitting right and connecting dots that, you know, us in our work, we've been connecting and speaking on for some time now. So I want to stop talking so other people can start.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You know, I, as a Black woman, I can share what my experience with the Blackout Tuesday was, and what I saw on my timeline, which is predominantly Black. You know, I think there was a lot of confusion, and I think it was interesting because at first I saw like Rihanna post it because it was a music thing. So I thought it was Blackout Tuesday for musicians and music. That's what I thought it was about originally, which I was like, great, like that's cool. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. Awesome. And then it quickly turned into this thing of, yeah, no one say anything on social media. Take the day off of social media. Don't post anything. Don't say anything, and post this tile, right? And so I was a part of it. I was part of the organizing team on the International Whores Day that takes place on June 2nd, which is a Tuesday, which was the Blackout Tuesday. And so the International Whores Day Coalition is a group that absolutely uplifts Black voices and amplifies Black voices, and has many Black-led organizers in the group. So in my opinion, it was a Black Lives Matter organization, and it was an organization that should have been uplifted in talking about Black lives, right? And so basically, you know, I woke up that day a little bit frustrated because I'm like, why is everyone acting as if they're not going to participate in social media? And then I put a post up that like, this is what we're doing today, post a selfie in red and support and all these things. And we had a few people comment and go, well, could you consider could you consider doing this on another day? You know, today's supposed to be Blackout Tuesday. Today's supposed to be a day for Black Lives Matter. And I was honestly offended. As a Black woman, you're commenting on my post telling me that I should, you know, correcting my behavior. And this was from other Black women. You're correcting my behavior from a marginalized group of how we're supposed to internationally celebrate sex workers. And you're asking me to take a pause from social media. I'm not the one who needs to take a pause from social media. So it was very, very quickly confusing, and also some policing that happened that shouldn't have ever happened. How dare you come to my Instagram and tell me that what I should and should not be sharing that amplifies the lives of Black people? What are you talking about? And so, you know, it was a very productive conversation because I quickly, you know, I said that and they quickly were like, oh my God, you're so right. You know, I should never police what you have to say. I should have never, you know, to tell you what to say. And so I also saw a common thread of Black people being like, well, I don't care about Blackout Tuesday. Like, why should I care about this? What's the point of it? This has nothing to do with what we're trying to do. Right. And so then obviously the conspiracy theories come of, oh, it's white supremacists who did it. You know, I had people DM me, oh, it's white supremacists who started this, and oh, yelling at other people, well, don't you understand that this, you're suppressing information from Black Lives Matter, and you know, over a hashtag on social media, right? So it was incredibly interesting socially how people digested the information, and turned to policing, turned to attacking, and turned to the exact problem that it was trying to eradicate. And so I didn't post the Black Square. I didn't participate in it at all because for me, I didn't have to if I didn't want to. And I'll be damned if anyone makes a judgment on me and what I do with my social media or what, you know, because I do the work. But that's me, and I can understand that, and that's why I'm sharing it with you just as a Black person, right? Because it was just really, utterly, it was confusing to me. And it felt like a movement that didn't include me at some point, right? It felt like it wasn't even about me. It was about white performance allyship more than anything, you know? And so, and it turned more into, I saw less Black Lives Matter about the post and more of, well, we all just need a moment to reflect and we all just need to take a break and a pause, you know, this kind of like as if you're so exhausted as a white person that you need to take a break, you know? So it just kind of quickly was co-opted and it was quickly weaponized. And, you know, a comment that I like to reiterate to people who are having difficulty understanding is that, you know, the internet as of now is not designed for Black people. So when Black people attempt to implement initiatives, social initiatives even more, they are co-opted. It is messy. It is confusing because the internet is not designed to support us, period, point blank. And so therefore, things like this can happen versus if Jack of Twitter or, you know what I mean, did an initiative, it most likely would be understood and used effectively. So we have to understand, well, why is it different when two Black women start something versus, you know, a white male in digital space, specifically these monopolized social media platforms like Facebook's, and the Snapchats and the TikToks, right? And so that's kind of how I feel about these kind of, you know, processing information and understanding, like, are you actually participating in something in a greater good, or is it performative allyship? So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
Because, one more thing. Just one more last thing to tie it all together is because, you know, understand that the Black Lives Matter hashtag happened in about 2014, 2015. This is something that is a new thing. And understand that it was seen as a huge threat because for the first time in forever, more Black people had technology and access to digital space than ever before. They were able to document their experiences, share their emotions, and actually have video and share what's actually happening to them on the ground. This was revolutionary. This was crazy. This had never happened before. And so we saw this happen in Ferguson with, I cannot be sure if Black Lives Matter happened because of Ferguson. I can't speak to that, I'm not sure. But there is an important historical element to that because Black Lives Matter started in digital space. It did not start in physical space. It started as a hashtag on social media. And so that's important to understand too when we start talking about hashtag initiatives around Black lives, and how that's implemented, who co-ops it, who, you know, what happens. And so that's that. That's it.
Thank you. That was
the people that are looking for that information now, a lot of people that are trying to reach racial sobriety. I think there are a lot of people around me that are deeply looking into themselves. I mean, my husband is white and his entire family, right? Like they are having conversations, and but he gave an example. I was just like, you need to post some shit because it's your timeline is full of fucking white people. And so you need to say more. And he posted the black tile. I opened my door. I was like, why did you post a black tile and you didn't give any other information? He was like,
Right.
he was like, oh my God, wait, I thought this is what I was supposed to do. I needed to like, and he was like, okay, tell me more, explain this to me, because he's been my punching bag. I'm like, it's really sad for you right now to be white in this home. Because
In this home only, yeah.
I'm coming for you. I'm coming for all of them. I have been always, but it's like, anyway, that's a whole separate conversation outside of this. But what he said something that like really hit me, like this. He said that I just saw somebody post a black tile that I know knows nothing about it, that wrote hashtag what is this, hashtag memes, right? And so they literally, and he said that most of the people that are posting on my timeline, they're not a part of the culture. They don't know, you know, like the pop culture that we maybe probably exist in and what our timelines look like and whatnot. His timeline is like fucking wake surfers and snowboarders and shit. Like that's what he knows and that's what he sees. And those are his people. And they were not getting the information. And so then when he even went to go look up, like if you look up the hashtag Black Lives, if you type in hashtag BLM, hashtag Black Lives Matter fully spelled out, or even hashtag blackout, it's like, damn, there's nothing explaining this. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is making me want to get more information, maybe as an ally, non-Black POC, or any non-Black person. And then you look up the hashtag and all of a sudden it's Black squares. And the time that people are trying to find information, that information is suppressed. And you know, why and how?
When we talk about like data weaponization, it's really important to know that data gets weaponized when we can acknowledge what parts of the information that we present back to folks in order to influence how they feel. So in this case, like, it's very apparent that white guilt was what was weaponized, because there's so many people saying, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to post, I don't know what to do. And so by posting this, they feel like they did something, but they actually, you know, contributed to the suppression and to white supremacy, not knowing that they were being manipulated. And I saw so many examples of that. And so like right now, I think the oppressor's goal is they want to suppress as much information and resources and police violence content as possible, but they can't just go out and be like, okay, like shut off the media, like shut down Twitter, shut off Instagram. So they have to find a workaround, right? And so the workaround is psyops. And so in this case, the people who want to post but can't and don't know what to post are white people, and the voices that they need to silence are Black voices. And so that's exactly what they did.
And so it made me think of the 2018 elections with like the Russian bots just adding a bunch of noise into social media so that the information that we're looking for isn't as accessible. And this work really made me think of Helen Niesenbaum's Obfuscation, a User Manual, which I highly recommend folks check out if they haven't. So obfuscation is the tactic of sort of disappearing information within more information is one of the ways that you can obfuscate something. So, right, people use the black tile and tagged it with Black Lives Matter, but also you could use that tile to tag it with like Blue Lives Matter. And so like, I think asking yourselves, does this work in like solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement or against it is a really good question to ask yourself. And I want to like second what Allison was saying, that like what was so successful about Blackout Tuesday in suppressing Black Lives Matter's movement information was that it preyed on white guilt. it was like a very successful campaign of silencing marginalized communities because it had an incredibly easy ask. And the ask was to post something and then get offline. Like, what more could you want as a white person who doesn't want to engage in these conversations? So I think like being really thoughtful about what the ask is, where it's coming from. I had a person in my DMs who was like, this is the music company that it started with, this is how it spread, and like literally tracing it all the way back to Jared Kushner. So just to like put on my little tinfoil hat, I think you actually might be seeing some like news articles coming out about the intentionality behind it and like how and when it was weaponized. And I think that this is something that's really important for folks to be aware of as more and more movement work happens online, because this is what we're going to see. Like, I think in the States, it's less likely that they're going to directly block certain internet websites, though we might see that as well. But algorithmic curation or shadow banning, or like the takeover of a hashtag to hide media, I think is going to be like the PSYOPs tactic that we see over and over again that is suppressing really vital life-saving information. So I think understanding how the algorithm works, how like your guilt or your positioning is actually like something that could be weaponized to suppress information in the algorithm, is something that's really important to start becoming more aware of. I also want to shout out Zeynep Tufekci's Twitter and Tear Gas, which talks about Arab Springs and protests in Turkey, about the way that Twitter was used both like in solidarity with movement work and against it. So it talks about like the power and fragility of organizing online and within social media and the rapid exchange of information.
Thank you, Blunt, for sharing that. Something I love to touch on is this concept of organizing in digital space. You know, we can't have this conversation without acknowledging the fact that we are still in isolation with coronavirus. We cannot deny the fact that we are turning to social media to talk and connect more than ever before, because the typical places where we see each other and organize, the bars, well, I like to drink, so the bar, the nightclub, you know, I'm just thinking about sex work, you know, the nightclub or you know, schools or work where we normally are seeing each other and having these conversations, we're not anymore. So what's happening is we're on Twitter DM, which you can't delete messages. You're on Instagram DM, you can't delete messages. You're on these platforms that are highly surveilled, therefore are able to, like Allison said, reflect information back to you to be used to manipulate. And so part of this mission being co-opted and the information being used to suppress actual Black voices that are needed as far as Black Lives Matter go is the need for connection and purpose, which COVID-19 has exacerbated. I love to use that word, but I can never say it correctly.
You
but
said it, but great.
I always think it's a weird word, and I just think I say it wrong. But the need for connection and purpose is amplified right now during coronavirus, because we do not feel purpose and connection for those millions who've lost their jobs, for the millions who are in entertainment industries or creative industries who have no idea when they're returning back to work. So there is this sense of urgency to feel connected and to feel camaraderie with other humans. But there is a disconnect of being able to dissect that information, process it, and critically think about it in digital space, because it is not a physical person. It is not a group of people. It is a cell phone. It is something we are already very desensitized to. You know, without my even liking, I see things I don't want to see. And I have to immediately be able to process that in my brain. And so that's something that should be acknowledged, this kind of empathetic level of, Allison brought up in the chat, this process of white people posting about it, being called out about it, you know, being upset that they're being called out, and then completely disengaging from it, right? And so this is a psychological process that we do in physical space, right? If we see a threat, you know, it's the same thing that we do when we see people. We have these interactions in person. So I encourage people to, just how you navigate threats in physical space, really kind of think about that in digital space too, and that thought process of, is this good for me? Is this wrong for me? Who is this really helping? And what is my intention with doing what I'm doing? And so that's harm. That's a very important harm reduction tactic, especially now when most of our lives are, a lot of our connections happening online. A lot of it is.
I think too, like, especially like white folks are not going to be perfect about what you post, and like having grace when you're called in or called out, I think is a really important harm reduction task, so you can like continue to do the work that's in solidarity with Black Lives Matters. I think is an important harm reduction tip.
Should we go into the examples of different types of memes? I thought it was really good, like the match my donation, the swipe up, trends that get you to reveal personal information or images to train facial recognition or to collect data, personal data.
Totally. Yeah. So this is actually a conversation I was having with Erin at ATM Fiend, who maybe I'll ask her to share more on this, but she was talking about like the black tile as being co-opted to like suppress movement work versus the match my donation being something that's used to actually like factorially amplify like bail fund donations. So both are virtue signaling to some extent, but the match my donation was actually tangibly increasing funds. And what I thought was so interesting about that, like that as a meme, that as like a rapidly spreading form of ways of raising money, is that it is virtue signaling, but like another form of like propaganda is saying, hey, I did this, you could too. And then people are significantly more likely to make that action. So right, there's positive ways that we can deploy these like psychological tactics that work in solidarity with raising money for bail funds, for raising money for memorials, for raising money for Black Lives Matters movements. And there's ways that those same tactics can be weaponized against movement work.
Yeah, and performative, the whole conversation around race and responding to anti-racism work, right? The difference between performative action and actually transforming your inner psyche and your cognitive behavioral patterns, which is the biggest difference. And when you think of our, just in history in America and white people and their need or maybe like virtue signaling or performative action to show that, hey, I did something, but not really do the work and have the discomfort inward, it has so much to do with the way, they were raised and their privilege. And that's a whole other type of like psychological conversation that we could probably speak on for hours. It's like something that it can go on and on and on. But one thing that I wanted to mention too with the memes, it's where the culture of memes exists also. So I think the culture of memes started on Facebook, and then the culture of memes moved into Instagram because memes are way more palatable on Instagram and how the information is shared there, and on Twitter, right? I'm newer to Twitter, so I'm still like getting used to the way Twitter runs, but I've been really struggling over LinkedIn and Facebook and understanding how certain content isn't reaching the various algorithmic bubbles on other mediums. And as we think about how our data is weaponized, we have to think about it from many different angles of the medium that it's being weaponized on, right? So Facebook in one, right? Instagram in another, and then LinkedIn or any other type of social media platform that it comes out. And that's something I'm still learning. I'm not familiar with LinkedIn's algorithms and how you can gain more followers, and people are just now starting to leverage LinkedIn as more of a social media platform where you're making videos and creating content. LinkedIn has not been a content medium. LinkedIn has more so been a medium for networking, right? The way kind of Facebook started as a medium for networking. And when you think of Safia's book, Algorithms of Oppression, like even within the first couple of pages, you're like, damn, Facebook was for the whites, LinkedIn's for the whites, and the way that it remains that way. And I think of my, the circle that I have on LinkedIn in the security industry, 90% of my connections on LinkedIn are white, if not more, that percentage. And that's because the security industry, 90% of the security industry is white, and that's why it's that. And I literally was just struggling to understand, why aren't these posts about Black lives, why aren't the posts of companies that are maybe standing in solidarity, or matching donations, or whatever work that they're doing to combat racism right now, why am I not seeing any of that on my timeline? And is that me? Is it because I'm not associated with enough people that are sharing that information? And it just it made me start thinking about a lot of different questions. And on LinkedIn, it's only people of color and Black people right now that are talking about what's going on. And so how do we get the right information to reach the necessary places? And again, to the question, like, who's the oppressor, who, or what medium, right? Who are they trying to appease, and what side, who's an ally and who's not an ally? But I'll let you guys, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys are avid LinkedIn users. I'm not really, but just trying to understand how data truly is, it's weaponized, and that psyops that's working on LinkedIn, like, people just are living blindly. And that's in the spaces where we need to break those algorithmic bubbles the most. It's, I'm really trying to understand why it's been so difficult. And
go ahead.
Sorry.
I think that's sort of what the intention behind Blackout Tuesday was for, to like amplify the voices of Black folks on social media, and so that like a white person's feed doesn't remain so white, so that algorithmic bubble can expand beyond the echo chamber, right? Because these websites are monetized, and the more time you spend on it, the more money that platform makes, and they're going to show you like similar things so that you stay on longer. And I think that SX, would you be interested in reading a little bit about the notes about the algorithm in the notepad? We have some notes on shadow banning and like what is shadow banning and what the algorithm is.
Yes, Taz, I realize that you do have to hop off the call soon. I wanted to give you some space if there's anything you'd like to share or say in regards to meme culture or anything that we're talking about today.
I think it's just really important to take the information that we're getting that is so valuable, all these memes that are being developed, these smaller graphics that are existing on platforms where Black and brown people are posting, and where I would say that there are more allies for the Black movement on Instagram than there are on LinkedIn, in my opinion, right? And it's a different demographic and age group. So I think that in the same right where we're thinking about these hashtags, okay, we want to support Black Lives Matter, but if this is a video, we should hashtag the opposite hashtags that we think to, right? Like the Blue Lives Matter, so that those hashtags get inundated with the information that we're trying to push out to the screens that need them most. So the one thing that I would ask, as anybody that is active in their allyship, bring the information to the places that need it most. And I think places like LinkedIn, and I don't really use Facebook like that, but I'm trying to post the information there as well, and taking the same kind of effort that we have of creating the memes that are circulating and putting them on a new medium, on a medium where it is majority white, because that's where the information, I think, really needs to reach. So that's what I would leave off with. And if anybody has any questions, if any Black-owned business needs any type of security assessment, any help, I'm in. I'm here to help any way that I can. So thank you all so deeply for having me. I am extremely appreciative, and I wish I could stay on longer.
Hopefully we can continue these conversations next week or something. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And for days. I have been.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm sending all of you ladies so much love, and Also, the last thing I'll add is I have a lot of friends that are spiritual healers, and during this time, if anybody needs healing, that's something that find me and I can point you in the right direction to some good healing work. But thank you for the work that you guys do.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Bye.
Bye, darling.
Okay, something I really feel that I need to say is that if somebody is asking you to do something on social media, for example, post a black tile or share something or swipe up, it's so important that you take the time to investigate the source of where that's coming from, why that person is asking you, who that person is. Are they a bot? Are they real? Like, is it a fake account? Are they impersonating somebody? And weigh the risk over the convenience, and ask what the main goal of posting or sharing that piece of content is, because that could have saved a lot of people from this black square bullshit.
I think that's really important. Thank you. And I think, like, I also think the question to ask yourself is, like, does this look like a fed op? Like, I'm thinking of the, like, viral meme of, like, share a photo of you at 18 and now. Is this being used to, like, further facial recognition technology without your consent? They're asking for your stripper name, the street that you grew up on, and your dog's name. Those are your security password questions. So, like, be mindful about the information that you share and how you share it. And, like, if it looks like a fed op, if it's too easy, it very well could be. And, like, I've been seeing, like, the swipe up thing to sign this going around sort of virally, and I like could trace it back to who originated it, and, like, that looked reliable, but I would only swipe up on that link from her page, because you don't know, like, where along the chain of this information being spread that they're actually just collecting data on, like, your political leanings. And, like,
and
now
it's
folks
coming from Instagram. Like, do you trust Instagram to get safe access?
And also, like, something to understand too is that we know that Black and brown people are more vulnerable when it comes to facial recognition. And so as a white person, when you do engage in these trends, for example, the 18, show a photo of you 18, show a photo of you now, to amplify, the goals of AI, they will probably have less repercussions or less impact than people of color and Black people from participating in that, So that's something to acknowledge too, of how the internet's being used, similarly to how physical spaces, right? So you may be engaging in an act that seems harmless, but ultimately it's harmful to certain people. Mistress Blunt asked me to speak on the understanding the algorithm. So Hacking Hustling has some great resources around algorithms and how to think about algorithms and how it impacts your life, specifically sex workers. But how shadow banning currently works. Shadow banning is a tool designed to reduce the prevalence of content that Instagram deems should not be easily discoverable on the platform. This takes a few forms: not showing up on the Discover tab, not showing up in relevant hashtag pages, and not showing up when searched for in the app unless using full screen name. Shadow banning is not responsible for changes in users' feed or how often someone's content shows up in a follower's feed. It is mainly about discoverability. And we can absolutely acknowledge that this discoverability has a moral judgment behind it. It has a moral judgment behind the people who are making that judgment, who tend to be white men. The algorithm is in context refers to the machine learning algorithm deployed to stack rank the content a user is shown in feed and stories. The algorithm predicts what content is most important to you and shows you that content. Notably, it also does this bandwidth with advertisements and machine learning, including what type of content it is, who's it's from, the hashtag used, and if it is an original post or a repost. It is impossible to know every single factor that goes into this algorithm, and it is constantly adapting and changing itself. So this is important to acknowledge, because there is a learned helplessness element from probably the person who's viewing this, which is someone who could be adjacent to the sex work industry, of our personal navigation, our work navigation of these social medias, and how algorithms impact that. What else do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I think I just really want folks to like, I think this is a time to really increase our digital literacy and understanding of the way that these platforms that we rely on, how they work and how invisibilized it is. Because as we're progressing in this like revolutionary time, I think that this is how we're going to see information being repressed, is through like algorithmic curation or shadow banning, right? And so sex workers have been shadow banned for years. This isn't something that's new for us. I'm curious if the Black Lives Matter hashtag will at some point be shadow banned. Is something that I'm nervous about. I truly hope that that does not happen, but I think thinking about that, and then thinking about, I think Taz said something really interesting, and there was a post going around with the Blackout Tuesday, like, don't share this with the Black Lives Matter, share this with like the Blue Lives Matter, right? And so, and like share it off platform, move it across different platforms. And right, if you know certain groups of people don't show up in algorithms and are like not getting the same amount of engagement that someone else with the same amount of followers would be, how can you amplify those voices so that they can be seen on a platform that has erased them?
Yeah, I feel like I like this narrative, but it also makes me nervous. You know, for a fact, I'm never going to make a post that says Blue Lives Matter. I would never do that. Simply because I don't want the people who follow that hashtag to come to my page. I think, as you know, being someone in the sex industry, being, you know, we had a really interesting conversation. I think it was a Happening Hustling thing, and we were talking about how we bring energy. Oh, it was the STO, about how we navigate the energy that we bring to our pages. And I think it is scary to think about, you know, cross-referencing and algorithms and all of that, because I don't know what energy I'm bringing to not only my life, but, you know,
do it with a
my
throwaway
page
account.
And all these things. Yeah, right. But that's a good distinction, right? I think, yeah, I think it's a lot. It's a lot. But I guess what else do we have to touch on before we
K-pop stands, they have been so critical in the efforts to shut down like White Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter hashtags. I don't know if you saw that happening on Twitter.
Who? Can you say that again?
K-pop stands, K-pop.
Oh. But I also feel like the Twitter thing has been weird recently, because each category has been really weird. Like, it's like certain things are defined under certain categories. And so when we talk about like Blunt mentioning like nervous about the shadow banning of Black Lives Matter, in a lot of ways that a lot of Black people have been shadow banned. So Black Lives Matter has been shadow banned, but it's concerning simply because of, you know, the founders of these tech platforms are being put on social blast more than they ever have before. And their personal views are impacting the design of these social media sites. And so Facebook is absolutely working with Trump. So who's to say that it won't be shadow banned? Who's to say, you know, people on the streets are being stopped, protesters on the streets are being stopped by FBI agents and asked about anti-fascist statements on their social media. This is happening. It's here, right? And so when you are a victim of someone spreading misinformation, I'm not sure if that's the right phrasing, it's okay to take a moment and sit in that discomfort, because a lot of things are happening that are not right. A lot of things are happening that is very confusing for us, and it's changing rapidly. So
yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. It's like assessing the information a little bit slower than you would normally engage with social media, I think is really important at this time. I think we're going to start seeing like a lot more fake information going around. I also want to like say, like, your own threat model, like a lot of people aren't going to want to like use those hashtags for that. Use a throwaway account if that's something that you want to do. But I do think we're going to be seeing more like psyops of like weaponizing guilt, or weaponizing like a lack of awareness or misinformation to spread misinformation, or to reduce the visibility of like really important information in movement work. And I think that that's how we're going to see it sort of take place in the States, of the suppression of information online.
Yeah, but it's also just to like, I mean, because that's really important. And it's also important to note that that in particular is targeted at Instagram, right? So each different platform is going to have its own form of psyops. And I think with Facebook, you know, if with the data that was subpoenaed from the 2016 election, there were so many Black Lives Matter movements and events that were actually advertised and created by folks in Russia. So we have evidence that that is what happened. And when people showed up, like they were, I think some folks were arrested. Like essentially they set people up and they created a divide not only between like the right and left, but also within their own communities, because they were putting out information that was intentionally meant to divide. So we're going to see that on Facebook. It's probably happening right now. And I like personally like would discourage people from using Facebook and engaging in Facebook events, because in the past people have you know, I posted a case study recently, last night actually, where the DOJ submitted warrants because they wanted to access to all the data of folks who not just clicked attended, but engaged with anti-Trump protests. We're going to see that happen soon, because they said that they were able to submit these warrants because violence occurred at that protest. Violence is occurring at the protest here, whether it's, you know, whoever's doing it, it doesn't matter. But it's like, the fact is those warrants will be submitted. And so we need to also figure out an action plan of like, how can we protect the people who, as you said, don't have the digital literacy to know that they should not be engaging in these types of ways with these platforms. In every single platform, there needs to be some type of digital literacy. And I think that that is something else that is 100% being weaponized within America.
And we have to understand that this is new. Our parents, our grandparents did not have to do this. So have patience with yourself. Be kind to yourself. This is something your mom, when she was marching out in the 70s, did not have to deal with. Did not have to worry about subscribing to a Facebook event and being tracked. Did not have to worry about swiping up and having their personal, you know, information being shared. That was not something that they had to navigate. There was definitely technological surveillance, I'm sure, but not to the extent that it is today. Not to the extent.
The tactics are new, but like this is just like very in line with like every fascist regime takeover that we've seen. It's just that the tactics are new, they're online, it's way easier to collect information, and that network, like social media is literally like a network of people that you know. That network is now very concrete in the data and like the web of how it spreads. But like you're totally right, like this is happening so fast, SX, and in this way that we haven't seen before.
So we got to be kind with each other. We have to be kind with each other and trust respected sources, like the people that you're listening to right now. That was a great harm reduction tactic of spreading misinformation. Of, you know, I recommend finding 2-3 people that you actively trust, journalists or community leaders, and that's who you get your information from and check in with. You know, I know Melissa Guerra-Grant is one of my journalists that I follow. I go through their feed like every other day because I trust the words that they say. I trust their opinions. I respect them, you know. And so Melissa Guerra-Grant, Kate Diama, you know, just sex workers and shit, you know. But those are the people that I value and trust. And there's another Black reporter who does a lot of work, a journalist for I don't know if it's for the White House, but they do a lot of that's my trusted source. And so that's how I counteract the spread of information, because something to understand about social media is it will reflect what you want to see, and it will actively validate what you want to see. And it is harder to digest information that is countering what you want to see. So that's something that's important to understand in this movement as well, that when you, as humans, we want to reaffirm what we know to be true. We don't like things that are new. It's the fight or flight, right? We don't like things that are presenting a threat to us. It's hard. It's not necessarily hard to understand, but it's a different process of how we understand it. So we in social media are constantly being reaffirmed our beliefs and our views. And so this is why it is important to find, because, for example, if MGG Melissa Guerra-Grant posted something that was like, ooh, that's making me think. but it's a trusted source, and I know that what they're saying is true and valid. And then I can then on my own critically think about how I should maybe change my behavior or move differently, right? And so that's a tactic that, guess what, I probably don't have to do that the same way in physical space like I do in digital space. It's a little different. So yes, okay, so it's been about an hour and 15.
Yes. I just want to shout out some of the like references that we've used, and if anyone has anything that they want to share. I think now is a really important time to educate yourself about social media and fascism and propaganda, because I think the way that propaganda moves, like similar to a meme, is constantly changing and evolving, and the tactics that we're going to see in this time, I think any literacy that you can do to help prepare yourself to reduce, I'm not gonna even say not, because to reduce the amount of misinformation that you share and spread is a really important harm reduction tip. So I wanted to shout out Rua Benjamin is also an amazing person to follow. She wrote Race After Technology as well. She also has a collection of essays that was recently came out that I'd suggest. I think Allison said it, but Algorithms of Oppression, How Search Engines Reinforce Racism by Safia Noble. Obfuscation, A User's Guide for Privacy and Protest by Finn Burton and Helen Niesenbaum, to sort of go into the ways that obfuscation is like a military psyops tactic that can be used to make something invisible, which can be really useful. So Helen Niesenbaum has this really interesting like art project called Ad Nauseum, which just hides all of your clicks by clicking on every single thing that's shown to you. So that as a form of obfuscation. I think that's a very helpful text. Zenab Tufekci's Twitter and Tear Gas, The Power and Fragility of Networked Protest. This is just like a case study of how social media has been used in uprisings in the past. And I would like, if one book, I think that one is the most helpful. Also, you can follow her on Twitter. She's writing a lot about the current uprisings and what's going on in the States. I think Network Propaganda from Harvard is about manipulation, disinformation, and radicalization in American politics. And if you like maps, that's a great one for you, which literally just maps out the ways that misinformation is spread and like sort of how echo chambers like stop or like exacerbate the spread of information. And yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have anything to add? I was just gonna like pop up little book titles at the end of this.
So I would definitely add Mindfuck by Chris Wiley. And, he is one of the people that helped build Cambridge Analytica. He was the whistleblower on the entire thing. His book is very eye-opening. It will make you feel like you do not have a tinfoil hat on and everything that you said is totally valid. He shines light on how the Trump campaign and what's that other white supremacist guy? The guy who owns Cambridge Analytica, his name is escaping me now, but how they work together with Facebook and took data to create these memes actually, and kind of divide people, and helped Trump win the election and also helped Brexit happen. So I definitely encourage reading his book, and at the end he has a great suggestions for regulating technology. One of the points that he made, which is something that I often voice and learn from him, is that unlike every single other industry like architecture or law, all of these people have to agree to being held accountable, because if not, you can lose your job, you can be fined. But in technology, it's an architecture. We're creating an architecture for services, and we are the only industry that does not have any regulations, where we can build architecture and invite people into a crumbling building knowing that it's about to crumble, So he gives a lot of great suggestions for how policy needs to be enacted immediately, or else this is just going to continue to happen. So I definitely really recommend this book to everybody to understand what happened with the last election and what's going to happen with this election and what's happening right
Awesome.
Oh, you guys are such thought leaders. I don't have
I-
any books to recommend. I don't know things.
I want to end, I'm going to share my screen real quick with you. I made this meme, which I feel like, I'm going to delete this, but this is just for you. That feeling when conspiracy theories are true. Oh, fuck yeah, spread it.
I love a good conspiracy theory.
But
so
like also,
much.
is it a conspiracy theory?
Is
But yeah, I think being mindful about the information that you spread and how you spread it. And also memes are really an accessible form of ways of engaging in political discourse. And you can make your own, like making sure that they're true, that they're like working in solidarity with the movement work that you want to be doing. I think it's like, this is what our brains have evolved to be able to digest, is these little bite-sized like crumpets of content. And it is a very useful way of sharing information really quickly and just being mindful of it.
Yeah. And also just, I mean, I feel like the word conspiracy has been co-opted in itself to make, to gaslight people. So another way to think of like conspiracy is alternate agenda, and everybody has an alternate agenda.
I love that. I love
yeah,
that.
that was good.
SX, you want to close us out with any thoughtful thoughts?
No, just as always, practice radical thoughtfulness and understand that there is no middle ground between being anti-racist or supporting the fascist state. So don't delete us, YouTube, or whoever this is being streamed to, for saying that. But and if you're out there marching, please be safe. And Black lives do matter. That's all I have to say. Black lives matter. Yeah.
And where can we find you, SX?
Oh yeah, I'm on SX Noir. The letter S. I forget that we're still in. I feel like we're just hanging out, which is bad. We're still recording. You can find me everywhere on @ the letter S and X NOIR. You can find my podcast on iTunes at Thought Leader Pod, and that is THOT Leader. Yeah.
Allison, if you want to be found, do you want to share anything about Women of Sex Tech or your work?
Join Women of Sex Tech this summer. Follow me in SX for updates. You can find me on Instagram at Falkyu, FALKYOU, or you can find me on Twitter at AllisonFalkPGH. I have recently been more active on Instagram and trying to share what I know to help keep people safe. So find me there. Find me everywhere.
Awesome. And I'm at Hacking Hustling on Instagram and Twitter, hackinghustling.org for more resources on digital security. Feel free to get in touch and let us know like what you want to see. I want to make sure that the conversations and the webinars that we're doing are relevant to like folks who are out on the front lines doing that work. And you can find me at Mr. Splunt cross-platform, mrsplunt.com. One day sexy content will return, so beware. And yeah, take care of yourselves and be mindful about what you share and post.